Welcome. My name is Lee Thurman here on the Teacher Lee YouTube channel. And in this video, we're going to listen to Chapter 3 of Smedley Butler's War is a Racket, a particularly poignant chapter. This chapter starts off with a poem by one of my favorite poets, Wilfred Owen. It's an extremely powerful poem, and I'm gonna do my best to do it justice. We'll talk more on the other side, though. So without further ado, Chapter 3 of War is a Racket by Smedley Butler. Chapter 3. Who pays the bills? And this chapter begins with a poem by Wilfred Owen entitled Dulce et Decorum est. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light. It was under a green sea. I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, and drowning. Now on with Butler. Who provides the profits? These nice little profits of 20, 100, 300, 1500, and 1800%. We all pay them in taxation. We paid the bankers their profits when we bought Liberty bonds at $100 and sold them back at $84 or $86 to the bankers. Then these same bankers stimulated a boom and government bonds went to par and above. Then the bankers collected their profits. It was a simple manipulation. But the soldier pays the biggest part of the bill. If you don't believe this, visit the American cemeteries and the battlefields abroad, or visit any of the veterans' hospitals in the United States. On a tour of the country, in the midst of which I am at the time of this writing, I have visited 18 government hospitals for veterans. In them are a total of about 50,000 destroyed men. Men who were the pick of the nation 18 years ago. The very able chief surgeon at the government hospital at Milwaukee, where there are 3,800 of the living dead, told me that the mortality among veterans is 3 times as great as among those who stayed at home. Boys with a normal viewpoint were taken out of the fields and offices and factories and classrooms and put into the ranks. There they were remolded. They were made over. They were made to about face, to regard murder as the order of the day. They were put shoulder to shoulder, and through mass psychology, they were entirely changed. We used them for a couple of years and trained them to think nothing at all of killing or of being killed. Then, suddenly, we discharged them and told them to make another about face. This time, they had to do their own readjustment. Without mass psychology, without officers' aid and advice, and without nationwide propaganda. We didn't need them anymore, so we scattered them about without any 3-minute or Liberty Loan speeches or parades. Many, too many, of these fine young boys are eventually destroyed mentally because they could not make that final about face alone. In the government hospital in Marion, Indiana, 1,800 of these boys are in pens. 500 of them in a barracks with steel bars and wires all around outside the buildings and on the porches. These already have been mentally destroyed. These boys don't even look like human beings. Physically, they are in good shape. Mentally, they are gone. There are thousands and thousands of these cases, and more are coming in all the time. The tremendous excitement of the war, the sudden cutting off of that excitement. The young boys couldn't stand it. That's a part of the bill. So much for the dead. They have paid their part of the war profits. So much for the mentally and physically wounded. They are paying now their share of the war profits. But the others paid too. They paid with heartbreaks when they tore themselves away from their firesides and their families to don the uniform of Uncle Sam. They paid another part in the training camps where they were regimented and drilled while others took their jobs and their places in the lives of their communities. They paid for it in the trenches where they shot and were shot, where they were hungry for days at a time, where they slept in the mud and the cold and in the rain with the moans and shrieks of the dying for a horrible lullaby. In the World War, we used propaganda to make the boys accept conscription. They were made to feel ashamed if they didn't join the army. So vicious was this war propaganda that even God was brought into it. With few exceptions, our clergymen joined in the clamor to kill, 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 to kill the Germans. God is on our side. It is His will that the Germans be killed. And in Germany, the good pastors called upon the Germans to kill the Allies, to please the same God. That was a part of the general propaganda, built up to make people war conscious and murder conscious. Beautiful ideals were painted for our boys who were sent out to die. This was the war to end all wars. This was the war to make the world safe for democracy. No one mentioned to them as they marched away that their going and their dying would mean huge war profits. No one told these American soldiers that they might be shot down by bullets made by their own brothers here. No one told them that the ships on which they were going to cross might be torpedoed by submarines built with United States patents. They were just told it was to be a glorious adventure. Thus, having stuffed patriotism down their throats, it was decided to make them help pay for the war too. So we gave them the large salary of $30 a month. All they had to do for this munificent sum was to leave their dear ones behind, give up their jobs, lie in swampy trenches, eat canned willy when they could get it, and kill and kill and kill and be killed. But wait, half of that wage was promptly taken from him to support his dependents so that they would not become a charge upon his community. Then we made him pay what amounted to accident insurance, something the employer pays for in an enlightened state. And that cost him $6 a month. He had less than $9 a month left. Then, the most crowning insolence of all, he was virtually blackjacked into paying for his own ammunition, clothing, and food by being made to buy Liberty bonds. Most soldiers got no money at all on paydays. Yes, the soldier pays the greater part of the bill. His family pays too. They pay it in the same heartbreak that he does. As he suffers, they suffer. At nights, as he lay in the trenches and watched shrapnel burst about him, they lay home in their beds and tossed sleeplessly. His father, his mother, his wife, his sisters, his brothers, his sons, and his daughters. when he returned home, minus an eye, or minus a leg, or with his mind broken, they suffered too, as much and even sometimes more than he. Yes, and they too contributed their dollars to the profits of the munitions makers and bankers and shipbuilders and the manufacturers and the speculators. They too bought Liberty bonds and contributed to the profit of the bankers after the armistice in the hocus pocus of manipulated Liberty bond prices. And even now, with the families of the wounded men and of the mentally broken, and those who never were able to readjust themselves are still suffering and still paying. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed chapter 3. Hope you also found it as profound and powerful as I did. The poem also. Wilfred Owen, actually, so he's a soldier in World War I. His mother received the letter saying that he had died in combat while the church bells were ringing in her town, signaling the armistice. Hard to imagine a more poetic ending to a life than that. Please like, share, subscribe, donate if you feel so compelled. GoFundMe links down below. I'll put the Venmo QR code as a whole screen here for a second. If you want to screenshot that, you can do that. It is June 23rd, 2025. 2 days ago, the U.S. bombed Iran. We've got to peel ourselves away from the military-industrial complex. There's just too much money wrapped up in war. It makes too much sense for too many powerful people to go into it. Always weary predicting the future, but if I had to guess how this is going to go, I'd say it'll go really well. And keep going really well. And keep going really well. And we'll hear about, hard-won victories and clear steps towards accomplishing the mission. And then, sooner or later, after enough investment, we'll hear how things are getting kind of weird. And then it'll all fall apart. And all those hard-fought victories will not have actually been worth much at all. See you for chapter 4.